This is the Louie T Network.
Louie T Live. Who else could it be? For me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the fourth installment of the In the Draft Room series, live. I, of course, am your man, Louie T, taking you along this journey as we get ever so close to the 2017 NFL Draft. We're about 2 weeks out now. Boy, are we getting ever so close. And things are starting to heat up. The rumors are starting to fly. We're going to talk about that tonight. A little bit later on in the show, going to get to your comments and talk about things that you guys want to talk about. Also, going to react to some of your comments to some of the things that I talk about at the top of the show. Also, we're going to talk about the tight end position. Boy, is this a deep draft class or what? So we'll get to all of those things in this particular program. Let me put out a little bit of a disclaimer to you guys. If you're smart and you want your comments to be read, okay, and you don't want me to skip over you, because I can't read everybody's comment. We're only on the air for an hour. So if you're smart and you want to skip to the front of the line, I advise you to use one of the social media platforms. IG, it's me, Louie T. Use it. It is at your disposal. Also, Twitter, at In the Lab Room. Tweet at me, hashtag Louie T Live if you want your comment read. Look, you can skip to the front of the line if you go to one of those social media outlets. If you want to be lazy, it's just like going to a drive-thru, going to a restaurant. I remember the days where if you wanted convenience, you went through the drive-thru. Okay, everybody would get out, go inside, and if you wanted to be smart, you went through the drive-thru. It was convenient. You didn't have to get out of your car. It was great. Nowadays, everybody is going through the drive-thru. There'll be 20 cars in the drive-thru and nobody inside. You know what I do? I park my ass in one of those parking spots and walk inside, and guess what? I'm out within 2 minutes, and there's still the people that I parked and watched 20 spots back have only moved 3 cars up. If you want to skip to the front of the line, it's convenient to sit on the chat in the actual chat room in the discussion box and chat away and ask your questions, but they may not get read. You want to skip to the front of the line? Use Twitter, use Instagram. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. But you've been warned. In any event, let's get to the show tonight, man. A lot to discuss. A lot has transpired since the last time we met. So let's get to some of these rumors. You know what I tell you every single week. You know what I tell you every single year. Nothing has changed, okay? Believe half of what you see, none of what you hear, even if it's spat by me, your man, Louie T. But nonetheless, the rumors are beginning to fly and run rampant. So let's discuss them. So, according to GM John Lynch of the San Francisco 49ers, the 49ers are open for business with the number 2 pick overall. Duh. Of course they're open for business. That's what everybody says. Now, in order to get up to the number 2 pick, do you understand what you're going to have to give up? All the 49ers are going to do is look back at what the Eagles gave up to come up to number 2 to get Carson Wentz last year, and they're going to say, hey, we want something similar to that. And it all depends on where you're trying to come from, who you're trying to acquire. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I laugh at this statement now, but I'm going to tell you one thing. If the Browns are silly enough to pass on Myles Garrett in order to take a guy like Mitchell Trubisky, that number 2 pick all of a sudden, not a game. It's not a joke. All of a sudden now, 2's a hot spot. And they may be able to rape somebody. I mean, really, really broken broomstick up the anus rape somebody for that number 2 selection if the Browns are foolish enough to do something that we all think right now is far-fetched and asinine. Speaking of which, perfect segue. The Browns organization reportedly is at odds with one another as to what to do with the number 1 pick overall. Hugh Jackson wants a quarterback. The rest of the brass wants Myles Garrett. What are we doing here, folks? Look, Hugh, you can't take a quarterback at 1 here. None of these guys are worth the number 1 overall pick. Myles Garrett is miles and miles away. You see what I did there? Miles and miles ahead of the rest of the competition in this draft. You got to take him number 1. Look, I can assure you of this. If you pass on Myles Garrett at number 1, you can't take him at 12. I can assure you of that. Now, what I can tell you is that if you pass on Mitchell Trubisky at 1, you might still get him at 12. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. All right? Do the smart thing here, Browns. You've effed it up for years. Okay, this is how we got here. You've been effing it up for years. Don't F this one up. Don't F this one up. You want me? Let's talk about a guy whose stock is potentially dropping. Reportedly, again, you know what I tell you all the time. I'm not going to repeat it, but I've already told you. Reportedly, Dalvin Cook's stock is falling because of the off-the-field issues. I've talked about them, and if you don't know what they are, I chronicled them on my draft Prospects 101 series. Go watch that video if you're not aware of what his situations in the past have been. But nonetheless, how true is this? I mean, really. First of all, the source, Jason Cole, has been wrong so many times, I can't even keep count anymore. So, first of all, when he says something, I kind of bat my eye like, oh, okay, whatever, what the hell ever, man. However, this is pure genius on the part of some team because he got his information from somebody. It's one of these teams at the end of the first round who want to get their hands on Dalvin Cook. This is what teams do every single year, a smear campaign on a player that they really like. So let's just use a team for an example. I'm not throwing this out there as some kind of conspiracy theory. I'm not saying that this team is up to no good or these types of shenanigans. It's just a hypothetical, folks. But let's just say the Oakland Raiders, who sit at like 25 or something in this draft. I don't know what their draft pick is. Somewhere in the 20s, though. Mid to high 20s. 22, 23, 24, somewhere in there. They need a running back. No more Latavius Murray. The L train, choo-choo, is out in Minnesota now. All right, they got a couple of backs that they drafted last year and an undrafted back that's solid in Jalen Richard, but those guys aren't your starter, your number 1 ball carrier, rock toter guys. No, those are third down, change of pace guys. All right. You think they wouldn't like to get their hands on a Dalvin Cook? And we all know about the beast mode rumors, and we're going to address that here shortly, but I'm just throwing the Raiders out there as a hypothetical, okay? You don't think that the Raiders wouldn't benefit from telling Jason Cole, hey, man, a lot of teams are really down on Dalvin Cook. Those off-the-field issues, man, those are some real deal breakers for a lot of teams. I wouldn't draft him if I were one of those teams. I'm seriously going to take this guy off my board in the first round. And I'll take him in the second round if he's there. But in the first round, I can't have that kind of distraction, that kind of resource that I'm going to have to dedicate to a first round pick. I can't have that kind of uncertainty. Not on my football team. And a lot of teams feel that way. You think the Raiders wouldn't benefit by telling Jason Cole that and having other teams hear that? And maybe a team's on the fence and they hear other teams aren't going to pull the trigger on this guy and they're thinking to themselves, hey, maybe we can still get this guy in the second round. We can pass on him in the first round. Maybe he'll still be there in the second round. Don't believe the hype, okay? Dalvin Cook probably isn't falling any goddamn where, okay? But it sounds good. If you're a team in the back half of the draft looking for a top of the first half of the first round back and you need to pull some strings to possibly get that guy down to where you are, these are the types of things you have to do to make it happen. But I will tell you, which is a perfect segue again, goddamn, I'm hot tonight. Somebody cool me off. God damn it, I'm hot. You want to know a guy that really is falling? falling. Now, this is real. DeShone Kizer, his ass is falling. Remember when we first started this whole entire process, who was the first quarterback that everyone thought was going to be taken off the board? DeShone Kizer's name was the one that kept ringing as everyone started to go through these quarterbacks. Kizer has the most upside. Well, now that title has been taken from him. Okay, they've stripped him of the most upside title. They've given that to Texas Tech quarterback Patrick Mahomes II. He's now the guy with the most upside. So they took that title from him. So now you're like, okay, well, he's the guy that has all the tools and can get it done. And maybe, just maybe, he's the most pro-ready. Nope, they took that title from him. Mitchell Trubisky is the most ready to go right now. If a guy had to play right now, everyone's saying Mitchell Trubisky, that's the guy that can play. Despite having the least amount of college experience, he's the guy that's ready to go right now. Can't say he was a winner. He was never a winner. That distinction goes to Deshaun Watson. So can't say he's a winner. Wrong Deshaun, okay? It's Deshaun, not Deshaun. It's Deshaun that gets that title. So where does he fall now? You heard Brian, we talked about this last week. Brian Kelly, his ex-college coach, saying this guy's not mature on the field or off the field. Now there's another report circulating. Some NFL anonymous current head coach said that DeShone Kizer has diva qualities. I believe it. Brian Kelly did not say ex-college coaches don't throw players under the bus for no reason. Because, again, it doesn't benefit you or your program. If I'm a player currently on the Notre Dame squad and I see what Brian Kelly has done to DeShone Kizer's draft stock with the comments that he made last week, that doesn't make me feel good and warm and fuzzy about my coach. So it doesn't benefit him to go out and say what he said, but he said it because he believes it. That's real, folks. And I told you, as a Notre Dame Fighting Irish fan, that something was fishy about DeShone Kizer. He was benched. And some of that is Brian Kelly being a little wishy-washy, okay? But he was benched in the Stanford game last year, all right? And he had ample opportunities to will Notre Dame to games last season, to will them to some wins. Late in ball games. Couldn't do it. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. So, hey, there's something going on there, and he is falling like he's got a damn boulder attached to his ankles right now. He went from the first potential quarterback off the board to he's fourth now, okay? I haven't heard one person mention him before Trubisky or Watson, and now Mahomes. Mahomes is making a hard charge to the top of the charts. He looks like he could easily be the second quarterback off the board. Easily. Arizona seems to be a very hot spot for a guy like Patrick Mahomes. And I'm not hearing DeShone Kizer's name anywhere. Doesn't mean he's going to fall out of the first round. Remember, we're still talking about a goddamn quarterback here, folks. Doesn't mean he's going to fall out of the first round. But what it does mean is that his ass is definitely falling. That stock is not as high as it was when this process first got underway. Jets looking to move Sheldon Richardson reportedly. They said odds are that he's going to be traded during the draft. I'm going to tell you right now, Sheldon Richardson is as talented a defensive tackle as there is in this league. I will also tell you that the man is one or two tacos short of a combination plate. He's not stable upstairs. He's a loose cannon and a head case. Now, for as good as this man is on the field, off the field, he's a piece of work. All right, so now you have to weigh the pros and the cons. Now you have to weigh the risk that are involved with trading for this guy because he's talented, no doubt about it. And the Jets realize we got Muhammad Wilkerson and we got Williams. We don't need this clown. We don't need the headache. We don't need the trouble. We need to offload this guy and get someone else instead. And so someone could get themselves a really good football player for not a lot in compensation. I think you could get this guy for a third-round pick. You know, you make the deal a little sweet. Maybe you got to throw a player in. Maybe you got to throw in a late round pick. But I think you could get him for a third and a late round pick. Sheldon Richardson could be yours. Now, can you deal with the headache? Do you have the infrastructure necessary to bring in a guy like Sheldon Richardson who could be a problem for you off the field? If you've got the infrastructure, I'd make the move. If the Jets aren't trying to fleece somebody, we'll see what happens. Seahawks, Raiders, reportedly, but this one looks more like a short thing, talking proposed trade that would send beast mode Marshawn Lynch to the Raiders. He wants to play football. He wants to play for his hometown team. This makes sense. I think it's going to happen. And he's already started to put in his paperwork to try to get back into the league. So from all indications, this is going down, folks. And this changes what the Raiders are looking to do, obviously, in the draft, because if they get Marshawn Lynch, all of a sudden, what was a first-round need, possibly a second-round need, and needing a running back, all of a sudden now you can push that down the list a little bit. You might still draft it back, but maybe you don't draft one now until the 4th or the 5th round. So this could change some things. And what will the Seahawks be seeking in compensation for Marshawn Lynch? Look, this is a really good commodity for them, you know. So if the Raiders really want him, they're going to have to pony up. And maybe the Seahawks are like, hey, I want a 4th-round pick for him. I want a 3rd-round pick. Do the Raiders pull the trigger there? I don't know. We will see. So I've said all of that. I want to get to your comments on everything that I've discussed. And we'll talk about this deep tight end crop a little bit later on. But let's get to your comments. You guys tell me what's really good.
Let me ask you a question.
What's really good?
Only thing we really want to know right now, what? Is what's really good.
What's really good, huh?
But the question for y'all, what's really good?
I have no further questions.
All right, so want to get to some of your comments. See if we got anything going on any of the social media sites before I get underway. I don't want to leave anybody out that may have sent a message. All right, so we're clean on Twitter and we're clean on IG. So let's get to your comments here and see what we have. First one I got in front of me is from Josh Berman. It says, what are your thoughts on Dan Rooney? I, even as a Ravens fan, respect this man. Yeah, it saddened my heart to hear the passing of Dan Rooney. He was 84 years old, so he was getting up there in age. But one of the ambassadors of the league, to me, one of the pioneers. His family is one of those pioneering families. I love the Rooneys, all of them. You know, his dad was a great man. He carried on the tradition. He was, again, they call it the Rooney Rule for a reason because they were the ones that pushed for minorities to get an opportunity to interview for jobs in the league. I just absolutely love the Rooneys and everything that they stand for. And yes, it's a loss for the league, and not only for the Steelers, but for the entire National Football League. He will truly be missed. Dan Rooney, may he rest in peace. Or, yes, Rooney, may he rest in peace. Bolt Up 801 says, which potential top 10 draft pick has the biggest potential to be a bust? I don't know, man. Let me kind of go through this top 10 and assess these guys, because I mean, you don't really know exactly who is going to go in the top 10. You'd like to think you're probably going to get both safeties in the top 10. You're going to get Myles Garrett in the top 10. You're probably going to get a guy like Jonathan Allen and Solomon Thomas in the top 10, most likely. You're probably going to get Lattimore from Ohio State. Might even get another corner in there if you're not careful. O.J. Howard may slide in there. You may have a quarterback or two go in the top 10. It's just so up in the air. Fournette could go in the top 10. He may not. It's hard to say. All of those guys, to me, it all depends. Because if a quarterback goes in there, that might be my answer. You know, if a Deshaun Watson goes in there and he goes to the wrong team, if he goes to the Jets at 6, oops, that could be a train wreck waiting to happen. You know, but all of these guys are good football players, so it's hard for me to – it's not like last year where I felt like there were a couple of guys that if they went in the top 10, that could be a big mistake for some team. But that's not the case this year. A lot of these guys, they're good. And unless they come in and they go to a situation that's unhealthy and they get off on the wrong foot, maybe they have an injury and they never recover or something, I just don't see too many of these guys that – this draft is so talented. I just don't see too many guys in the top 10 being busts. It's just hard. A lot of people like to pick on Joey Bosa. I wasn't on that Bosa train last year, but a lot of people like Joey Bosa is going to be a bust. Fine, have at it. But when you're picking in the top 10, generally, if you're staying away from some of those positions that can be hit or miss, like quarterback, when you pick a positional guy, if you stay away from the offensive line and quarterbacks, for the most part, you pick a guy in the top 10, he's going to be good. Generally speaking, unless you get a Trent Richardson. None of these running backs in this draft are Trent Richardson, okay? I was never a fan of Trent Richardson, okay? Never, even when he was selected. So there's none of those guys in this draft. But if you go and select a quarterback, he can be the next Ryan Leaf. He can be the next Jamarcus Russell. But if you take one of these positional players, I think all of these guys have the makings of good NFL pros. I just don't see any of them not being good. Slump says, what round do you think the Chargers will draft a quarterback? Give me your prediction. I'm going to tell you right now, it all depends on how the board shakes out. If the guy that they like is there in the first round, I think they take a quarterback in the first round. I'm not lying to you. I seriously think that, let's say that they have a man crush on, and he's not going to be there when they select, I don't think. But somebody help me. He may be there. I take that back. Because the Chargers have a pretty high draft pick. They're not taking a quarterback in the first round. They're going to take a quarterback, I'm going to say the third round. I'm going to say they'll take a quarterback in the third round. You know what? I'm lying. They're going to take a quarterback in the second round. They're going to take Davis Webb out of Cal if he doesn't go in the first round. We've been hearing this guy shoot up draft boards as well. All right. But if he's there in the second round when they select, I can't see the Chargers taking a first-round quarterback. They're too high in the draft. You got to get a guy that helps you at a different position. If you've already got a quarterback, you can't afford to do that right now. But second round, Davis Webb has all the intangibles. I think that's a guy that could really excite some teams. Wouldn't be surprised if the Chargers pulled the trigger on a guy like Davis Webb in the second round. He's already out there in California. They've already had a nice long look at him. I think that would be the guy if I'm thinking about the Chargers and what they would decide to do at the quarterback position. It's going to be early, though. I don't think it's going to be later on. I think it's going to be relatively early. They're going to want to get that out of the way because they don't know how much time they have left with. All these teams, it's funny, this is the year that a lot of these teams are starting to realize we don't know what the future holds at the quarterback position for our football team. The Cardinals feel that way. With Carson Palmer, every year, I don't know if I'm going to play next year or not. He's going to play this upcoming season, but they don't know past this upcoming season. The Steelers are feeling the same way about Ben. We all knew Ben was coming back this year, okay? But the fact that he's entertaining the thought of not playing lets you know that, hey, the clock is ticking. We need to go and they're going to get someone this year. I think they're really going to go out, and Landry Jones is not the answer. They're going to go out and get somebody this year. Chargers, another team. Saints, another team. All these teams are starting to look at their quarterback situation and say, you know what? I think it's time for us to start planning for the future. And so this is a very intriguing draft from that standpoint. Really is. All right, I think I got some comments on Twitter. I know I seen one pop up from my man Cubone. At Cubone Football says, what do you think the Rams need to address in the draft first? I think O-line or wide receiver. I've been saying this for the longest time. If you want your quarterback to succeed, you must first protect him. If you want your quarterback to succeed, you must second equip him with the weapons necessary to succeed. Right now in Los Angeles, they have enough up front. Going out and getting Andrew Whitworth in free agency shored up one of their biggest needs on the offensive line, which was left tackle. He's still got at least 1 or 2 good years left in him. All right? That's going to buy you enough time to go and spend an early draft pick on a receiver. There are no tackles in this draft or guards other than Forrest Lamp out of Western Kentucky, but are we really looking to go out and get a guard? I mean, look, the running game is just as important, and your run game stunk last year because you couldn't run block. Your offensive line was horrendous. So if Forrest Lamp fixes a couple of problems, helping you run the ball and protecting your quarterback, by all means, have at it. But this is not a very deep wide receiver draft class. So if you're looking to get a number 1 receiver, which the Rams need, you went out and got Robert Woods in free agency. He's not a number 1 receiver. He's a number 2, and he's really good at that. That's fine. You still need a number 1 wide receiver. You have to get one early or you won't get one at all in this draft. This is not like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, where it was littered with guys that could come in and start for you, be number 1 receiver in the 2nd and 3rd rounds. No. You want a number 1 receiver, you need to act fast or you will not get a number 1 receiver. So if I'm the Rams and I feel like offensive line is the biggest issue, like I said, you went and got Andrew Whitworth in free agency. He's going to help you. If you can get by with what you have, I draft a receiver. If you can't and you still feel like the interior is a problem, then maybe you go after a guy like Forrest Lamp. I just think that Forrest Lamp, it's too early for a guy like him. You got to get a receiver if you want to maximize the pick. But look, if Forrest Lamp is the guy and he turns out to be good, we won't be discussing that this guy's a guard. Bottom line, if he's good, he's good. Period. Redskins took Brandon Sheriff 5th overall. Is anybody talking about him as the 5th overall pick as a guard? No, he's a Pro Bowl football player. Who gives a damn? Do what you got to do. So that's my thought and my stance. I'd take the receiver. We'll see what they decide to do. All right. See if we got anything else on Twitter before we move on. No, we don't. Appreciate that, Cubo. All right, so next comment I'm up to Captain Spartan. We got 30 minutes left. Captain Spartan 04 says, just so you know, I'm 98% sure the Steelers are taking Josh Dobbs. Yikes. That's all I got to say about that. Is yikes. Good luck with that, too. Slump says, you see those, them new Lions gray alternates. They looking nice. Yeah, I did a peek game on those, and yeah, they do look nice. Nike is going to try to put their imprint on a lot of these teams with these alternates and changing logos if they get the permission to do so. So none of this is a surprise to me. Yeah, and remember, I already told you. The Lions, I told you this at the end of the season. The Lions are getting rid of the black. They're no longer going to have black in their logo. They're removing that from their color scheme. So remember, one of their alternate jerseys was the black jersey. Well, now black is no longer a part of their color scheme, so they have to put a new alternate in there. Hence, here comes the grays. So there you have that. Moving right along. Let's see. We got anything else going on? Josh Berman says, I think Mahomes and Watson are the 2 quarterbacks in the draft. Mitch is overrated as hell, and Kaiser is exactly what you are saying, fishy. We're going to see. I really like Mitchell Trubisky, and I think that Deshaun Kaiser has some issues, but again, if he's put in the right system with the right coach, I think he's a guy that can be fixed and has all the talent necessary. So while I hear you talking, I tend to believe that every quarterback in this draft class has some strengths and things that you can work with, some workable tools, as I like to call them. And I think that it's going to determine, the fit is going to determine how these guys succeed at the next level. To me, that's basically what it's going to boil down to. If I'm one of these quarterbacks, I don't want to go to New York with the Jets. I don't. It's just not a good situation. It's not a stable organization. I'd much rather go to the Browns, as crazy as that sounds. I'd much rather go to the Browns right now than the Jets. That ship is sinking and fast. How many quarterbacks have they taken over the last 4 years? How's that worked out? I mean, they can't even develop the guy that they took last year in the second round. We're talking about the Jets potentially going after another quarterback. That's a mess. I don't want to be a part of that if I'm one of these guys. I think whoever goes there is probably being set up to fail. And that's why I say all of these guys can succeed, but it's all about where they end up, to me. Got another comment on Twitter. Use the hashtag Louie T Live. Not gonna read this comment. I could not be a jerk here, but you guys know the rules to the game and play. Use the hashtag Louie T Live. You want your comment read. All right. Got another one though. At Ravens Nation FTW says, who do you think we will draft? Hashtag Ravens flock. I really think that the Ravens are looking wide receiver at number, I think there's 16 in this draft, if I'm not mistaken. And it's all about who's remaining. I think there could be one receiver, possibly two off the board by then. I don't think there'll be more than two. I don't honestly think two will be off the board by then. It's not going to be like last year. I don't think we popped the top on the receiver position until like 18 when the Browns, with their second selection in the first round, went and took the receiver out of Baylor. That was the first receiver we saw come off the board last year. We won't see a receiver not be selected all the way into the mid to late teens this time around. Someone's going to go early. Now, who's that guy going to be? I'm hearing teams are falling in love with Mike Williams and his size. And then he ran well at his pro day. John Ross is obviously on teams' list because he's got the one thing you can't teach. And that's going to scare teams half to death. You put him on your roster with a big arm quarterback, and he's dangerous. So he's another guy. But for me, if I'm the Ravens, Joe Flacco is best when he's got a guy that he can throw the football to deep. You've got a ton of guys that have big bodies on your roster right now at the receiver position. If I'm the Ravens, you need someone to come in and be your new Torrey Smith. All right, Flacco was at his best when he had a guy that scared the defense deep. Now, I know Bashad Perriman can run, but I don't really believe he's really that fast on game day. I just don't. I'm sorry. I don't. You give him a John Ross, and Ross is becoming more of a receiver, not just a one-trick pony. You give him a John Ross, and I think Flacco might turn back into a quarterback that is one of the most dangerous in the league. If you give him a Mike Williams, he'll be fine with that. If you give him a Corey Davis, he might be fine with that. But I like Ross at 16. I really do. I really like Ross. And I know you have Mike Wallace. Mike Wallace is cool, but Mike Wallace isn't Mike Wallace anymore. He's okay. He can still run. We saw that last year. But for my money, you got big guys already. You got big receivers in Baltimore. And you stay stocked and chalked and locked full of big tight ends. So they're big body guys already you can get the ball to. I'm looking for some speed. I'm looking for an infusion of speed to take the top off of a defense. John Ross would be my pick at 16 for the Baltimore Ravens. Or 16, I think I said 16. I get confused sometimes. So you have to excuse me. All right. Who Dat for Life says, who should the Saints take at 11? That is intriguing because I've heard quarterback at 11. I've heard linebacker at 11. I've heard defensive lineman at 11. So there are countless possibilities. Again, who I think they should take and who they ultimately will select. Having taken a defensive lineman and a linebacker in the first round last year, I think you might see this Saints organization shy away from the defensive side of the football and go with an offensive football player. Would not shock me if they decided to do that. But the defense is so bad. It's young, but it's so bad in New Orleans. Am I recollecting this correctly? Did the Saints sign Manti Te'o in free agency? Did they do that? Was that the Saints? I believe it was the Saints. I could be wrong. I don't see them taking a linebacker. I don't. It wouldn't shock me if they took a defensive lineman. But I really think they want a quarterback. It wouldn't shock me if they took one. First, because remember, Saints made the trade. They got 2 first-round picks. So at first I was thinking they might get Patrick Mahomes. They really like Mahomes. They might get him with that 32nd pick from the Patriots. Patrick Mahomes is not going to be around at number 32. So if you want him, you might have to take him at 11 because I think the Cardinals are sitting at 13. He's not getting past the Arizona Cardinals. Wherever the hell the Cardinals are picking, he's not getting past the Cardinals. I can assure you of that. So I could see Mahomes going at 11. I really could. I look at that Saints defense, though. They could use a safety. Boy, it'd be hard to pass up one of those top safeties if one of them is still on the board. I find it hard to believe that both of those safeties aren't gone by 11, though. But if one is there, I don't know if you can afford to pass one up. I think you might have to pull the trigger there. If a pass rusher is there that you like, and I don't know, maybe you like Derek Barnett at 11. Because the Saints need more pressure. Cameron Jordan is all they have up front getting to the quarterback. So I would say pass rusher first. Safety second. Quarterback third. That's the order for me. If Barnett is there, he seems like a New Orleans Saint to me. Body type, everything screams Saint. That would be the selection for me. One of those top tier safeties is there, which I doubt. But if you can get your hands on an Adams in the first round at 11, you got to take him. But I think it's going to be a defensive lineman, a pass rusher. I think that is a pass rusher. All right. If you're sending me a message on social media, use the hashtag LouieTLive. Okay? Not going to read your comment if you don't. Just saying. All right. Going to get to one more comment here on the discussion, and then I'm going to jump to Twitter because we got a lot of heat on Twitter. And we got 20 minutes left. Vincent Cole says, do you think it makes sense for my Seahawks to draft Evan Ingram in the first round? No, I don't. You still got Jimmy Graham. I think you still got Luke Wilson. I love Evan Ingram, and he's a difference maker. He would fit your offense, but I don't think it makes a lot of sense. I don't. think that's overkill. There are much more pressing needs for the Seahawks right now than overdoing it at a position that you already have some talent at. So I wouldn't do that. I think it's overkill. If you could get Evan Ingram in the second round, that'd be great. I wouldn't have a problem with that. But he's not going to be around for you at the back end of the second round. So if you're dangling Richard Sherman out there, that means you feel like it's almost time for you to move on. That might be the time to take a corner or safety. How many years does Cam Chancellor or Earl Thomas have left in them? You might have to pull the trigger on a safety in the first round. It's a deep safety and cornerback draft class, but why not get something elite? I hear this every year at deep positions. Well, it's such a deep position, we can get one later. That's that same shit the Redskins said last year at defensive line. And you know what happened? We ended up with Matt Ioannidis in the 5th goddamn round. How'd that work out for us? So don't feed me that bullshit. Oh, it's a deep safety and cornerback draft. We can get one in the 3rd round. We can get one in the 4th round. Okay, try that bullshit if you like to. See how many of those guys go off the damn board in the first 2 rounds while everybody else is putting a corner or 2 or a safety or 2 in their goddamn shopping cart. Your ass still over there shopping for the defensive line and running back and shit. Then when you come over to the cornerback aisle and see how bare that shit is, and you end up with one of these back end of the draft bastards that shouldn't be taken to the 5th or 6th round, and you pulling the trigger on one of them in the 4th round, you're going to see what happens. Get you one of them elite boys if you can, man. Pass on the tight end position. You got tight ends already. You want a tight end? Get somebody else later on in the draft. Get one of these corners, man, one of these safeties. Upgrade that. Because I'm telling you, you're on borrowed time in that secondary. Earl was already using the R word last year. Cam Chancellor been crying for a new contract for like 3 years now. Richard Sherman asked for a trade. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. All right, let's get to Twitter, man. Twitter is starting to heat up. And I got something on Instagram. So I want to get to that too. So Matt Thievish, or Cubone, at Cubone Football says, what is the best fit for Patrick Mahomes, a.k.a. my favorite quarterback in this draft? I'd love to see him go somewhere where you got a quarterback guru. So New Orleans is fine for me. Arizona is fine for me. One of those types of places where I know he's going to be well taken care of. All right? I don't want to see him go somewhere like New York with the Jets or even Cleveland where the infrastructure isn't the greatest. Even though Hugh might be able to do something with him, I want to see him go somewhere where he can sit for a year, where I know he's going to sit behind Drew Brees, behind Phillip Rivers in San Diego, behind Carson Palmer in Arizona, and he's going to get the tutelage necessary from a guy that can coach up quarterbacks. That's where I want to see him go. Anywhere like that. All right. At Matt Thievish says, how should the Saints approach this draft with 4 picks in the top 75? And does a great draft make them a contender? Now, I already talked about the Saints. And if I'm the Saints, you got to get that defense fixed. The offense is good every single year. And I know the defense is young, and you've got guys on top of guys that have either been injured or you're just not sure of what they are. I mean, you still got the kid from Florida State that just can't stay healthy, that you, at the cornerback position, you have no idea what he is as an NFL player. I understand that. But at some point, the defense has to get better. And so, you need to get to the quarterback. You want to fix all of the ills that you have in the secondary? Get to the quarterback. So my first pick, if a guy I like is there that can get to the quarterback like a Derek Barnett, I'm going there with one of my first picks. They got another pick at the end of the first round with that trade, Brandon Cooks. You lose Brandon Cooks, you need to replace Brandon Cooks. So if I'm the Saints at 32, and there's somebody I like at the receiver position there, I'm taking a receiver. Cheaper labor. You get that. At the end of the first round, remember, you get that 5th round option. So if you like this receiver, you don't have to pay this receiver for 5 years. So I would take a guy at the end. Just make sure whoever you take with that last pick is a guy you really like and think is going to be a cornerstone for your football team, whether it's offense or defense moving forward, because you want that fifth-year option. In any event, you want a pass rusher, you want a safety, you want a receiver, quarterback. Those are the 4 draft picks that I would be looking to make if I'm the New Orleans Saints in this draft, in the first 75 picks. Any order you like, make that happen. We got 14 minutes left, guys. Try to get to as many of these comments as possible. At Eagle Speed 4311 says, if Corey Davis and Dalvin Cook is there for 14, at 14 for the Eagles, who would you take and why? That's easy. For me, Corey Davis is the pick. All day, every day. You can get you a back in the second round. Okay? Hell, you can get you a back in the third round in this draft. It's enough of them to go around. What you need for Carson Wentz is a legit bona fide number 1. The same discussion I had with the Rams just 10 minutes ago applies here. You want your young, budding star quarterback to emerge, get him a target that he can grow with. All right? You look around the league at all the best quarterbacks for the most part. All right? You have your transcending stars like a Brady, like a Breeze, who can just make guys good. I'm talking about if you want a guy to emerge like a Matt Ryan, you need to go get him a Julio Jones. You want a guy to beat Andy Dalton, you need to go get him an A.J. Green, okay? Go get Carson Wentz, a guy he can grow with. If I'm the Eagles at 14, the pick is a receiver. And if Corey Davis is that guy, make it happen. All right. Next comment comes from @skins_love_24. He says, do you believe Reddick will be available at 17? Sorry, Louie T forgot that hashtag. It's all good. I don't think he's going to be there. And if you watch my Redskin video, and I'm pretty sure you have, that's who I want at 17 for the Redskins. I don't think he's going to be there. But I take that back. No, I don't think he's going to be there. I was about to say, but the Colts just signed a linebacker today. No, they didn't. They signed Jonathan Hankins, which I would have loved the Redskins to have done, but he ended up an Indianapolis Colt. In any event, it's too. I think it's like 3 or 4 teams in front of us that might need a linebacker. I see Reuben Foster going off the board at like 9 to the Cincinnati Bengals. And then from there, it's a waiting game. And I can see Reddick going to the Colts. Right before us, like 2 picks. I think the Colts are at 15. I can see Hassan Reddick going off the board at like 15 to the Colts. Right before we were going to take him. Just like last year, the Colts, they took Ryan Kelly, the center out of Alabama. We were going to take him. And so we ended up having to take a receiver. I think they're going to do us in again. Second year in a row. Colts are going to take the player that we were going to take, and we're going to have to take somebody else. But we'll see. I hope I'm wrong. All right. Matt Thievish says, how should the Eagles approach this draft? What makes the most sense for them? I just told you receiver, and I'm going to jump on IG here quickly and get to some of these comments because I don't want to leave you guys out. Appreciate y'all hitting me up on IG and making that happen. So we're going to check that out. But as far as the Eagles are concerned, my whole thing is with the Eagles, you just have to get enough weapons for Carson Wentz. Last year, they didn't protect him well. Once Lane Johnson got suspended, the offensive line was a train wreck. That experiment didn't work well at all. So if I'm the Eagles, I'm looking to protect Wentz. I'm looking to get him weapons. While the defense wasn't great, it was good enough at times. I would want to definitely address the offense. There wasn't enough weapons last year. And to me, that was the biggest issue with what they were trying to accomplish last year. So that's what I would do if I were the Eagles. So there's that. All right. So I want to get to some of your tweets. Or I know some of y'all hit me up on IG, I think. Thought I saw some IG posts. Maybe I was seeing Twitter. Oh well. Let's get back on Twitter. See what we got. All right. At King Park _SN39C says, my Cowboys take TJ Watt at 28. What do you think? It's possible. I know the Cowboys were one of about 5 teams that worked out TJ Watt. Had a sit down with him. Makes sense. I've also heard the Cowboys may be interested in taking a safety. We know the Cowboys got rid of both of their starting corners from a season ago, so that's also a possibility. So I think the Cowboys could go in a number of different directions in the first round. I think it's going to be defense. Believe it or not. The offense is set. They got everything they need offensively. We saw that last year. They're going to go defense. And whether it's a pass rusher, and I think they need pass rusher, if I were the Cowboys, I'd go pass rusher. That's just me. I'd want to attack that need first because the secondary is deep, and I've said it's a deep draft class. But in order to allow the secondary to come along, you need to be able to get to the quarterback. You can have all the corners you want. If you can't get to the quarterback, those guys are still going to have to cover for an inordinate amount of time, and that's going to allow guys to get open anyway. So get to the quarterback, and then we'll worry about the corners and how well they're playing in the secondary. So, yeah, TJ Watt could be an option for the Cowboys at 28. And he's been rising up draft boards because I see him as a second-round draft choice. I don't see him as a first-round player, but, man, a lot of teams are intrigued by him, and that Watt lineage is definitely helping him. At real Gregory LS says, what do you think about John Ross for the Redskins? No. I would love to replace Deshaun Jackson with John Ross, but not at 17. That's not the answer. I don't think he's going to be there anyway, but that's not the answer. At Dre the Great X says, if Tre'Davious White, Zach Cunningham, and Malik McDowell are at 24 for the Raiders, who are you taking? The secondary needs to be upgraded, but the linebacking core is so bad in Oakland right now. I'm taking Zach Cunningham, and I'm not looking back. Okay? You can get you a corner, the likes of a Tre'Davious White in the second round. I think a guy will still be around for you. Malik McDowell is nice, but you can get another defensive lineman. You need an impact linebacker. There are only about 5 or 6 of those guys in this draft. And if you wait, 2 of them are already gone by 24. Hassan Reddick and Reuben Foster are already gone. So 2 of those 5 or 6 guys that I'm talking about, they're gone. Then you're left with the Davis, Anzalone from Florida, those boys, Zach Cunningham from Vandy. I like Tyus Bowser from Houston as well. But the pickings are going to get slim quickly at that linebacker position. So I'd take the linebacker there if I were the Raiders. You don't have anything at linebacker. Nothing. All right. See what else we got. My man BFG says, Skins have some great late draft picks in abundance. Do you go need or depth? Depends on what you do early in the draft. That's going to shape and mold the decision-making later in the draft. If you drafted best need available and maybe the best need available sort of meets a need, but it doesn't meet the depth criteria, maybe you go depth. Maybe you go and you draft a tight end later in the draft, let's say. Depth. Maybe you go, we still need safety help. Don't be fooled because we signed a guy in free agency and Sewell Cravens is moving to safety that we're set at safety. You still need more safety help. You still need more cornerback help. Bashad Breeland, last year of his deal, is he going to be back? Don't know. Just to be sure, how about you take a cornerback in the 4th round? I think you got 2 4th round picks. Spend one on a cornerback. I'm just saying. Need more defensive line help. Could use another offensive guard. We can replace Sean Laval. Spencer Long's going to be a free agent next year. Could use some offensive guard help. So just all depends on what we do with those early selections. That's going to dictate what you do in the later rounds when you got a bunch of picks, like you said, almost 2 in every round after the 4th round, if I'm not mistaken. You got like 2 in almost every round. So makes sense. We'll see. All right. Got 4 minutes remaining. I want to get to a couple more comments up here, and then I'll finish up by talking about the tight end position, and then we'll get out of here. Vincent Cole says, what do you think about Josh Jones, safety out of NC State? Big kid, ex-receiver, tons of speed. Loved him at the combine in terms of measurables and athleticism. Extremely raw. Okay? So he's another one of these guys that needs to be developed. But if he lands in the right spot, you know, I liken him to TJ Green. That's the guy that I see with him. Remember TJ Green, ex-wide receiver out of Clemson, moved over to safety, went in the 2nd round to the Colts last year, could run, 4'4" guy. Josh Jones, 4'4" guy, was long at 6'2". Josh Jones, 6'2", 6'3", safety. A lot of similarities there, but he needs time. He's raw. He needs time, but I like him. I like him as a developmental guy later in the draft. All right, so with that being said, let's finish this thing up with some tight end talk. So I've had a chance to look at all the tight ends for the most part. This is a really deep tight end crop. I'm telling you, if you need a tight end, this is the year. Much like running back, you need a running back, this is the year. If you need a cornerback, this is the year. If you need a safety, this is the year. Tight end. I'm telling you right now, if you need a tight end, get 2 this year. Don't get 1, get 2. It's that good. Put yourself in a position where you won't need a tight end for years to come. You need speed, they've got it. You need hands, they've got it. You need blockers, which is usually not the case. Got a couple of those sprinkled in there as well. George Kittle can block. O.J. Howard can block. Njoku can learn to block. Okay? Gerald Everett can learn to block. There's some stuff here, guys. Pass catchers galore. Hell, Adam Shaheen out of Ashland, who's like 6'8". Big ass guy, like 275, 280 pounds. Can run, can catch it. Oh, and by the way, he's like another offensive lineman at 275, 280 pounds. I'm telling you folks, this draft is loaded at the tight end position. You can get you one in the 1st round, get you something elite. You can get you one of these 2nd-tier guys and still feel good about your purchase. I'm telling you right now, I had a question about the Seahawks taking a tight end. Maybe not in the 1st round, but this is the draft to get a tight end. Put one in the cart, man. 2nd, 3rd, 4th round. Put one in the cart. You may not need it now. Just put one in the cart anyway. I'm telling you, it'll come in handy. Tight end position, loaded. It's going to do it for me tonight. I thank everybody for joining me. Great show. That's how you use Twitter, folks. You want to jump to the front of the line, use social media to help you do it. Episode 5 is going to be based off of the defensive side, front 7, talking defensive linemen, talking linebackers. We're going to do all of that next week. Come back and join me. Same time, not the same day. We're going to be back to Wednesday next week. I'll see you then. Have a good one. Remember, if it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here on the Louie T Network. I'll see you next week. Have a good one. Thanks for joining me again.